Well, good evening. Hello, everyone. It's so great to have you here with me this evening. And thank you for joining this evening's tea time with me, Adrian, in case you didn't know who I am. For what I think is going to be a very interesting and a very relatable topic. As I'll come on to in a second. So for tonight's tea time discussion, I'm going to be looking at the subject of cycles and patterns, and we're going to go a little deeper with this. We're going to go deep. So hold on to your hats, because it's going to be a very enlightening subject, I'm sure. Hey Gal, it's nice to have you here with me. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're well. Hope your week has been good as well. So yes, cycles and patterns. How do cycles and patterns initially manifest and develop? Jay's here as well. Hello, darling. Deep. Yes, absolutely. How can we recognize the difference between an unhealthy and unhelpful cycle to that which is positive and healthy? So we're going to look at that as well. And finally, we're going to look at the impact that cycles and patterns have on us. The various different levels and stages, the depths in which these cycles and patterns can have. How do they impact us? So firstly, if you are watching this live now, welcome. Thank you for joining me. You can probably hear the little doggy outside in the back that's barking away there. He wants to get in on the discussion. So if you're here with me, don't be shy, say hi. So I've got the lovely Jay with me this evening as well. So she'll be manning the comments and probably posting some extra stuff in there for us as well. You know, these discussions work really well when we have your engagement and your interactions. So feel free to ask questions, you know, put your own points across. If there's, you know, somebody else that's got a comment or wants to share something and is looking for help or whatever, then this is about collaboration. It gives you an opportunity to kind of collaborate with others as well and get that discussion going. Yeah. And if you're watching this on a replay, then thank you for taking the time to rewatch this video. Jay and I are always monitoring our socials. We're always looking at the data to see how these performs. It's really interesting. It's great insight to us because what it does is it tells us, it confirms to us that these videos really are reaching an audience, which is fantastic. But it'd be really great to have an audience joining us here in these lives, contributing with the discussions, participating, you know, as I say, asking the challenging questions. Don't be afraid to challenge us. I might get shot for saying that later, but don't be afraid to challenge us, yeah, and challenge each other. We're all about developing a community that is engaged, that is conversational, that is collaborative. You know, we're all about the oneness. So, you know, we're here for you. We're here to serve you at the end of the day, but you can also serve yourselves and you can serve each other as well. So yeah, feel free to participate. And if you're here watching, don't be shy, say hi. Yeah, challenging in a fun way. Absolutely, darling. Yeah. So, you know, if you've got some interesting perspectives and points of things, feel free to share. Absolutely, that's what this is about. And even if you don't agree, you know, even if there's something there that you feel like that, you know, is an opposing point, we really want to hear that. You know, we want you to have those types of conversations with us, you know, to have that dialogue. Don't challenge your duel. No, we'll try not to do that, darling. We won't let it get that far. Don't worry. So yes, please feel free to like and share our content, this video, get it across to your network. Let's get as many people involved in this as possible. Don't forget you can like and follow our Facebook page if you haven't already done so. And you can also follow us on YouTube. We do have a YouTube account. We're not really using it, haven't been using it so far, but we will be using it. So be sure to also hit the subscribe button on YouTube and tickle the little bell icon on our content, because that means that you get more notifications and more content from us as well. So that's the formalities over and done with. So the idea of cycles and patterns, I'm interested to know from you really, and you can pop this into the comments. How well, let's start from the beginning. For you, what cycles and patterns do you recognize within yourself? And how do you distinguish the difference between something that is helpful and something that is potentially harmful? You know, do you feel that you have cycles and patterns? They might not be so apparent to you. They may be hidden. They may be transparent. Your perception, we're going to talk about perception in a second. How you perceive that cycle. You know, do you actually consider it to be something that's just natural and it's just something that I do, or it just happens, when actually if you gave it some thought, well, what impact, and this is the thing, what impact is that cycle, is that pattern having on you? And that's how we can distinguish, that's how we can tell whether a pattern or a cycle is helpful for us or not. It's recognizing the depths of the impact that is having on us. Hey Karen, I can see you here with us as well. Thanks for watching. It's so great to have you here. So great to have you here. You'd love to share us everywhere, but your people think it's woohoo. Well, you know, that's common. That's common. You know, it's a perception. It's about perception. It's about how we perceive the topic, and it's about how you go about approaching this subject with people. It's a subject that Jay and I has been having a lot recently about. You know, we've been sort of reviewing things and discussing how we can get these conversations going and this content out there. And we recognize, you know, there's resistances, there's barriers to accommodating, accepting these types of discussions. But actually, these are the types of discussions, these are the deep, meaningful discussions that we should be having, because this is about personal development. This is about, let's ignore the spiritual, all right? Let's take that away for the moment. This is about personal development. This is about how we can recognize self-improvement. Yeah? Oh, bless you, Gail. So we've helped you from the beginning. Well, you know what? Thank you. You know, thank you so much for sticking with us, and we're so glad that this resonates with you, that our content resonates with you. I remember coming across to you or discovering you at the time when it was My Mindful Mentor, and you know, you have stuck with us for a long time. So honestly, Gail, thank you so much. Thank you. You know, and it's great to have you with us. Yeah, Karen, I think you're making a very, very valid point. Always a resistance to changes in people's beliefs. Yeah, and that's another factor that we'll look at, you know, perceptions, stress, belief systems, belief cycles, that sort of thing. And, you know, it's a challenge itself, you know, but as the great holy Dalai Lama once said to a lay person who asked him the question, why am I always experiencing obstacles in my life? I'm trying to get from here to here, but all I experience is obstacles and obstacles and obstacles. And he stopped the person and he said, if one sees obstacles are obstacles. But if you see opportunities, then they are opportunities for growth and change. And it's very true. It's how you perceive the situation. And that's very relevant to this topic that we're looking at this evening. Very relevant. So yeah, I'm interested to know how you see cycles and patterns. How do they manifest for you? Do you recognize them? Do you recognize them as healthy and unhelpful or positive? Maybe you've got a positive cycle and routine that you follow. We've got to talk about that as well, So I do, Karen, as well. I love that quote as well. It's a fantastic story. It means so much to me. It really does. It really resonates to me. The idea of how you perceive things. If you see it as a challenge, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to have negative energy to it. It's going to have this heavy feel. It's going to be resistant. It's going to be a barrier that's going to stop you from moving forward. But it's just a slight change, just a subtle change in that perception. It only needs to be something subtle. And this goes back to what Gail was saying about the challenge of convincing people in this type of subject. It only needs just that subtle difference. And it makes such a big impact. I use the analogy, and I've used this time and time again, about a sailboat on the ocean, heading in a particular direction. You change course by 1 degree and the end of the destination is just so different. It's so different. And it's not always about the end outcome. It's about the journey as well, experiencing and enjoying the journey along the way, So a sense of enjoyment, a sense of fulfillment. And I think that probably a lot of the challenges here that we're talking about, belief systems and this just isn't what we talk about in our household, or whatever it might be, is the reason. It stems maybe back to an element of fear. It's the fear of change, the fear of the unknown. Why change something if it's not broke, right? Well, that's why we do energy work. To actually fix the things, to bring the things to the surface that actually what are perceived to not be broken, to be perceived as okay, when actually, it's not. And that's why we do energy work. And that brings empowerment, that brings a sense of fulfillment, a purity to one's existence. And we go on to live a life of fulfillment and purpose. And again, coming back to fear, I think sometimes, people are fearful of that purpose, fearful of that change, what their potential really is, Anyway, I digress. I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent on this. So I'd like to share a personal experience with you to kickstart this subject, because it's something that I've come to recognize within myself, a pattern, a cycle that has developed. And really what's happened is, what I've discovered is I've fallen out of routine. My normal routine has become something, I've become quite resistant to my normal morning routine. It wasn't until fairly recently, and I'd say probably in the last year or so. That's probably an exaggeration. It's probably not been quite a year. It's probably been between 6 to 8 months. I used to be getting up every morning to do yoga. I had a morning routine, journaling, doing my brain dumps in the morning, which is a great way to detox the mind first thing in the morning, to just down on paper, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. You just put it down on paper. It's also known as speed writing. Okay, Karen, no worries. Well, hopefully you'll pop back on. Feel free to jump back in and out. It's lovely to have you here, though. Thank you for joining us, as I say. And my routine, my pattern was fairly consistent. And I was up every morning at the same time and getting into my routine, and then that would feed into my yoga routine, feed into my pranayama, and then straight into my TM at 8 o'clock. And then by about 8:30, that's my routine done, and I'm fit and I'm ready for the day. And that's a helpful, healthy cycle, because I could see the benefits and the rewards that that particular routine was having for me. But somewhere along the line, as I say, it's probably 6 to 8 months, something changed. And this is even after I went on a trip to Ireland, on a meditation trip for, best part of a week, nearly 10 days, to deepen my meditation practice, my meditative practice. And when I came back, I was equipped with some more elements to my technique, to my practice, and I tweaked it, fine-tuned it. And I'll tell you the reason, because I think I know what the reason was. But for a reason, the routine just started to deteriorate. I wasn't doing my journaling. I was sleeping in. My sleep has been disturbed, been having some really rough nights of sleep. And my morning routine was just out of the window, completely out of the window. I wasn't getting up feeling motivated to do my yoga in the morning. I still do my my meditation, but all the other aspects, all the other components to my routine just completely went out the window. And I recognized, really, and it's only been recently, I've recognized the trigger. What triggered the cycle, my morning routine, what was helpful, what was healthy. I identified the trigger that turned it into something that was unhelpful, that was negative, and pretty much non-existent, really. And it was stress. The simple yet complex feeling, emotion, sense, whatever, that we all experience at some point, stress. It was around the time that I was having some difficulties with a prior employment, and was going through some rough challenges there. I was feeling demotivated. I was feeling like my value wasn't appreciated, and I felt unfairly just. I was unfairly treated. So I made the decision to leave that employment and to change the cycle, to get myself out of that situation that was causing me so much stress, that it was having a negative impact on things like my routine, my sleep, my eating habits, etc., etc. And so fundamentally, stress was my trigger in this particular case. And I was able to identify it. I'm slowly getting back into my routine. I'm now back into journaling. I still need to kick myself out of bed to get on the yoga mat every morning, to get back into that routine. But it's a gradual cycle. It's about changing the mindset and working on that and undoing the impact that the stress had on me at that time, that caused me to fall out of sync, to develop a new unhealthy, negative cycle and pattern, which was staying in bed longer, dismissing and putting off doing the journaling, not seeing the value of that. And the thing is, here's the thing about this, and I was talking about perception a moment ago. My stress which was fundamentally about not feeling valued and appreciated, really had nothing to do with my job, my employers, my colleagues, my team. I'll come back to that point in a moment, Gail, about the belief. I'll come back to that in a second, because that's a very interesting point. Did it affect my belief? Did it change my belief? I'll come back to it in a moment. The perception, my perception of the situation had nothing to do with the external. It was all to do with the reflection of how I was seeing myself. It was myself that was reflecting this lack of value, this lack of appreciation, or not feeling appreciated. That despite doing the routine, that despite doing the healthy cycle and pattern, overlaying this with a relatively strong degree of stress was only compounding. It was negatively impacting this otherwise healthy, helpful cycle that I was that I got myself into. Hey Laurie, it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. We're just talking about cycles and patterns right now. I'm just telling a story about my personal experience recently. So it's a reflection of the self. It was a reflection of how I was seeing myself, the lack of within the self. And what was happening was I was projecting that outwardly onto my employment, onto my employees, onto my colleagues, onto my work. And that then ultimately is what affected and upset what was otherwise a healthy, productive, helpful cycle pattern. And so you see about the subtle changes, just the subtle changes. My routine prior to that was strong, it was stable, it was consistent. I got up every morning to do the yoga, to do the routine. I got my journal book ready, and every morning I was there doing my brain dump, doing my affirmations, doing my gratitude every morning. Yet it was the stress that was impacting and that was having an impact. It was affecting what was otherwise a stable process, a stable routine. And that stress, the source of the stress, was coming from within, because I was experiencing a lack of value and a lack of appreciation for the self. And that was creating the stress within, which was being emanated out. So I think sometimes when we get to talk about these kinds of subjects, it's worth just going back to basics a little bit. And when I was thinking about this subject to talk about this evening, I found myself thinking about the resonance effect. And this is another subject that you've probably heard us talk about. And it's a subject that I did a video on a couple of years ago in a video series that I put together. It's a subject that Jay and I have discussed, talked about a lot. And I think sometimes when we're talking about a deep subject like cycles and patterns, I think it's worth just going back to basic a little bit and talking about the resonance effect and how that is actually having an impact. How that's kind of driving this process, should I say. So as we know, everything is made of energy, okay? And we know this, science proves that. And when we talk about energy, what we mean is it's the electrons that when we go beyond the subatomic level, it's essentially electrons that are resonating and behaving in a particular way, which then determines the state, the condition, the environment in which something is then developed and manifested as. So liquid, gas, solids, whether it's a human, whether it's an animal, whether it's a plant, whether it's a rock, a stone, etc., etc. Okay, so we know this. Everything is energy, and that is the intrinsic link that connects us with the universe, because it's the same thing wherever you look. Wherever you look, it's the same substance, it's the same thing that is consistent across the universe. And because we are made of that same substance, we're essentially made of stardust, it creates an intrinsic link with the universe. And so born the idea of laws of attraction, manifestation, abundance, etc. Okay, we're made of the same stuff as stars. Absolutely, yeah. What an amazing thought that is. What an amazing thought. I'm just going to go a bit deeper on that subject though, because although we're talking about energy here, I think there's another aspect. There's another thing that isn't really talked as much about, or maybe if it is, it's kind of underrated and it's not really kind of seen in the way that it should be. And there's another deeper layer to this existence, and that's consciousness, pure consciousness. And pure consciousness is also everywhere. It is also found in everything. Let's take the quote from Law of Attraction for a second. That kind of, it's an extension of the quote that we know from science, that everything is made of energy. Well, everything begins with thought. This is what Law of Attraction tells us. What does that mean? What is it referring to when it says that everything begins with thought? Well, it's talking about consciousness. It's talking about this depths of existence that is so abstract. It's so profound that it's the very force, it's the very thing that everything has manifested from. And for those that meditate, if you meditate regularly, then the chances are that you can identify, you can recognize consciousness, pure consciousness. Maybe we'll talk about that on another occasion, about how we reach consciousness, and maybe look at what consciousness may feel like. But it's something that's so difficult to be able to quantify and to describe. But maybe we'll save that for another time, another discussion. But consciousness is a layer of existence that drives everything. It is literally the source, the infinite source of creation. So when we talk about everything begins with thought, it's coming from consciousness. Where do you think thoughts come from? Where do ideas come from? It comes from deep, it comes from deep within the mind, for sure, but actually it comes from a much deeper place. And it's pure consciousness that thoughts and ideas stem from. So let's now align this, let's join the dots and connect this with energy. If consciousness is the driving force that is within everything, and if everything is made of energy, then energy is the fabric. It's the fabric of consciousness. It's the proof that consciousness exists. And we can use that to our advantage. We can use it to help us in a positive manner to manifest the things that we want in life in abundance. But it can also be destructive, because it can also manifest in an unhealthy way where habits, attitudes, patterns, routines that are not actually very helpful for us, that just in the end go on to create blockages, resistances, misalignments, reversals, and it's ultimately that result that is stopping us from reaching our true potential, from allowing us to manifest the things that we actually do want in our lives. Manifestation is a continuous, infinite process anyway. We can't stop that. But it comes down to the quality of our existence, how we exist within ourselves, that determines the quality of that external existence. Yes, I do. I do think that consciousness is linked to the universal mind, because what you're referring to there is collective consciousness. So collective consciousness is where consciousness is connected and it's interconnected. So when two individuals sitting next to each other meditate and they go down into that depths of consciousness to find that place of pure bliss, then essentially what's being tapped into is the same existence. It's the same level of perception, if that makes sense. It's ultimately going back to source. And the source is infinite creativity. So I just need to scroll back a little bit, because I just want to come back to the point that Gail made, the belief system. I'm going to get to that point. So we're starting with thoughts. This is the start of the resonance effect. This is the start of the cycle. And it depends on what the quality of those thoughts are, which then determines the quality, the state of external existence, as I was just saying. So let's take the thought for the moment. Any thought. Let's not describe it as positive or negative at this moment in time. We take a thought. We have a thought. And we keep thinking that same thought, that same idea. The inevitable next step, how that then manifests, is through emotion. We start to feel a particular way. And if it is a negative, unhelpful thought, then inevitably the experience of emotion that we have will also be aligned to that, will be negative. And the more that then continues, there's a third dynamic that then gets affected, and that's the physiology, the physical self, where we start to feel sensations and experience things in our body, aches and pains. It's where illness and disease will stem from, ultimately. I read an article recently, not too long ago, that stress and anger, unresolved stress and anger, are the building blocks for cancer. Find that absolutely staggering, profound. But the building blocks that lead to cancerous cells developing can be attributed, have been traced back to unresolved stress and anger. And that for me just confirms this whole thing that we've been talking about for so long, that it's the quality of the thought that affects the emotion that goes on to impact the physiology. And so that little cycle is completed. It just goes back. And because we're feeling that ache, that pain, it just only validates the thought that we initially had in the beginning. And so it goes around. It goes round in that cycle. We have the thought, we feel the way, physiology, thought. And so it goes round. But here's where beliefs then start to creep in. Because as that little resonance and that cycle is happening, and by the way, we're using the word resonance because it's radiating a resonance, it's radiating outwardly an energy, a quality, which is at the heart of manifestation. This is why we deal with underlying beliefs and underlying thoughts. You may think and you may perceive that you're doing everything to try and ask the universe to manifest whatever it is that you want in life, wealth, money, success, relationships, love, whatever. But it's still not happening. And it's because at the heart of it is this little resonance that's going on that doesn't actually believe. The universe knows actually what you're projecting outwardly is not what you're actually feeling and perceiving internally. So there's a misalignment there. That's a blockage. That's a barrier that's stopping you from manifesting change or whatever it is that you want in your life. So as this little cycle is continuing, there's now another layer that is that's cocooning this cycle, and that's the belief system. Beliefs then start to manifest. And when you start to develop a belief system, that inevitably is going to have an impact on the way that you behave, your attitudes, your actions, how you interact with others. It inevitably will. And so the impact of that resonance is starting to now, it's changing, because what was starting as internal is now developing into something that's becoming very external, because now you're having an impact on others. You're having an impact on the relationship that you have with other people. You're having a direct impact on the outside world, on your environment, and the conditions in which you're existing. Let's forget about manifesting at this point. You're impacting your environment. So here is the birth of cycles and patterns. But there's another thing that we should also include in this little story, in this description. And I think that it's very important to talk about triggers and to talk about the things that can happen in one's life that in the end cultivate as trigger points. So what do we mean by a trigger point? And where does the trigger point happen? Where does it come from? Well, a trigger point can come from at any point in your lifetime. It's a particularly traumatic or stressful situation. Whether you perceive that a situation to be harmful, negative, traumatic at the time, because it could be something that you experienced as a child. And maybe at the time it wasn't particularly stressful for you. You had no concept of the word of stress at that age. And yet that is how it was absorbed within your energy, that experience. A child falling over in the playground, surrounded by other children, being laughed at. The misact of simply falling over and being laughed at is a trigger point. It's become a trauma to that child. And it's certainly if that child then grows up to develop sources of anger, low self-esteem, possessive and obsessive disorders. So childhood experiences is probably the deepest and the most profound sources of trigger points that we can have. But before that, what we could also be holding within ourselves is something that's not our experience. It's something that we haven't endured ourselves. It's something that we've acquired. And that acquisition can simply come through genetics and through our ancestral links. It's quite possible that you could be holding on to a traumatic situation, a traumatic energy that happened way before you were even on the planet. It could be through your parents, your grandparents, your great-great-parents, your great-great-great-great-grandparents, and maybe even all the way back to the start of time. These are the situations, these are the things that are deeply held within us, but are so difficult for us to be able to identify and to label that is what it is that is triggering this this cyclonic behavior experience of life. It's so impossible for us to tell what the cause is, what the energy is that's attributed back to that thing that has that we find ourselves in. Whenever we experience something in life, all our experiences, all our thoughts, all our emotions, everything that we experience is retained in our energy in some way. I'm just picking up the comment that Jay's made. So you uncovered some deep cycles of feeling unsafe from childhood trauma, and it was also a genetical pattern. Back 8 generations, my gosh. Absolutely. Yes, and you can use energy work as the basis to deal with that. 8 generations. That's pretty deep. That's very deep. Was that using Reiki? Were you using Reiki, or was you using another modality there at all, darling, to identify that? I'm taking a sip of my mint tea because my throat is just starting to get a little bit dry and a little bit tickly. So we'll come on to that point. We'll come on to that point, Gail, about how we deal with it. Yeah, I'm sort of building up to it, for sure. Yes, right. Working with your brother using energy work. Very good, very good. Okay, so I was just explaining that every experience that we have is retained somewhere within our energy. It will be retained in our thoughts. It will be retained in our emotional state. It will be retained in our physical body. So it will manifest as a pain, as an ache, or a discomfort of some sort. But when we use energy work, when we do energy work, as I was saying, it's so difficult. It's pretty much impossible to be able to know what it is that you're actually working on to get the release. Hi there, Ant. Great to have you here. Thank you so much for watching. We're just talking about cycles and patterns, and we're just talking about something called the resonance effect, to help us understand how energy works and the basis of which cycles and patterns, unhealthy cycles and patterns, can manifest. If you'd like to contribute at all in the discussion, we've got some great points being raised this evening. Feel free to say hi, don't be shy. My partner Jay is here on the live as well, so she can answer some of the questions if I miss anything. But feel free to say hi in the chat. We're a very welcoming and very accommodating community, and I hope that you enjoy the discussion. Feel free to contribute. Put challenging points across, but it's great to have you here. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So This experience is what is retained in our energy. I'd like to use an analogy to try and explain this. When we're born and we are born retaining the energies of past generations, we can compare that to I'm going to describe this as a jar, as a glass jar, okay? Stick with me on this. We're born with retaining this energy, and we can use the analogy as a glass jar as the example. And in this glass jar, at the point of birth, we've got some grains of sand in here. We're holding on to the energy of traumas and experiences from previous generations. So we're born already holding on to some of this, okay? And each grain of sand is a different experience, is a different trauma, it's a different thing that has happened in the past that's been retained in our existence, in our physiology, in our energy, okay? And as we grow up, as we go through childhood, every experience that we have, every lesson that we learn, every acquisition of knowledge and information gets retained as another grain of sand into this jar. And as we age, as we grow older, then more sand fills this jar. So when it comes to doing energy work, to get the release, what we're trying to do is clean the glass jar. We're trying to cleanse this jar that is now becoming full of all these different experiences that we've had in our lifetime and that we've acquired from prior life. But it's impossible, it's near impossible to take 2 grains of sand from that jar and say, and attribute, yes, this was the occasion when I got stressed about this person that pulled out in front of me or did something that nearly caused me to have an accident. And this grain of sand is to do with an occasion I got really upset with somebody because they hurt me. It's impossible to be able to do that, to know that. But we use energy work as a cleansing method anyway to try and get that release, to resolve ourselves from what is being stored within us, to clean our energy, to realign it, and to free ourselves from blockages and resistances. So it was Gail that was raising the question about belief systems. And I was saying a moment ago that the deeper our thoughts and our emotions, the more negative those thoughts and those emotions are, and how they have a deeper impact on the body, then the more negative our behaviors and our attitudes start to develop. But the belief system is quite fundamental here. This is what makes the difference between manifesting something that is pure, positive, helpful, healthy for us, to something that is the complete opposite to that. It's the belief system. You could be doing all of the energy work, you could be doing all of the meditating, all of the wish fulfillment that is abundantly available to you. You could be writing your affirmations. You could be sending those requests outwardly. But if the belief system isn't in line with what you're trying to project outwardly, then no amount of wish fulfillment, no amount of projection outwardly is going to make a difference. You just won't be able to get that manifestation that you truly want for yourself or that you're looking for. So how do we undo this? How do we change this? Where do we need to start? And you might think, well, actually, it starts with changing the beliefs. Well, actually, no, because remember, the belief system, the way that we're perceiving the world and how we're perceiving ourselves. I gave the example earlier about how my sources of stress, which caused me to fall out of routine with my morning routine, was because my belief was that I had a lack of value in myself. It was a lack of value in myself. And that came initially from 3 stages before. It came from the thought. It came from the idea that I had of myself. That eventually led to a belief system that I wasn't good enough. And that I wasn't worthy. I'm not worthy for this job. I'm not worthy for this success. I'm not worthy of, whatever it is I'm trying to attract and bring into my life. It all stems from the thought. And that's where we need to start. And we need to recognize the difference between a cycle that is helpful and that is helping us to move forward, that's helping us to project outwardly in a positive resonance, that we get back exactly what we are wishing and hoping for. It starts with the thought. And this is what makes energy work so profound. Because energy work doesn't really focus at all on what came before. We're not focused on what was that ancestral thing that happened 8 generations ago. Let's sit and ponder that for a moment and think about what could have happened. We're simply not focused on that because it's so impossible to be able to attribute that. What we focus on is the release. What we focus on is the change, is the transformation. We focus on resolving ourselves and freeing ourselves of the impact that cycle has had on us. You must have known deep inside that you are good enough. Yes. But it comes back to perception. Perception again. It wasn't my perception at that time. It wasn't the perception at the time. So, although, yes, deep down inside, there was a part of me that did believe that I was good enough, it still comes back to the perception and the belief and how it feeds back. Let's just recap on the cycle, okay? If the thought is there initially that I'm not good enough, that then trickles through those layers and circles back to the belief system. And then the belief system is again validating and confirming the thought. So you're locked into that cycle. You're just locked into that cycle. Yeah. And because that was locked into that cycle, and that's what was going on within inside me, as I say, it had nothing to do with the external. Actually, what was going on inside of me, and because of the resonance that was producing, it was affecting the external. It was affecting the outside. Because the stress was coming from within me. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within me. And so all the negative experiences that I was having at that time was a result of the resonance within me. That's what I was attracting. It was a lack of within me that manifested in a lack of externally. And the real belief of that I am good enough, that I am worthy, was being suppressed. This is where your resistance comes from. It's that suppression. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that I was actually good enough. And it was being suppressed by these other thoughts. And the more it happened, then it was just getting buried and buried and buried and buried. Yes, I do remember you were saying that, Gail, that you'd lost your way. Yeah, a few months ago. Yeah. But you managed to pull yourself out of it though, right? You recognized what was going on. And thinking back and reflecting on that, you could probably identify some of the cycles that were the telltale signs, right? You could probably look back at that situation and see, yeah, I was doing this was happening, that was happening. It's very interesting, very interesting. Sorry, Laurie, I haven't skipped past you. So listening to you reminds me so much of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yeah, he's fantastic. He's fantastic. I haven't listened to any of his stuff recently, or read any of his stuff recently, but yeah, the Gaia channel is, yeah, highly recommend the Gaia channel for sure. Yeah, it is fascinating stuff, isn't it? I love the link. You know, having done transcendental meditation, oh, thank you, darling. Having done transcendental meditation now for, work this out, I'm up for 3 years now, I think. Must be about 3 years. Jay can probably remind me. She knows dates and things like that. Got far better memory than I do. It, for me, is just another piece in the jigsaw. 3 years, yeah. You'll probably hear stories of me talking about how I got into law of attraction and how I got into energy work myself. That it was that was a cycle and a pattern in itself, being caught in this cycle of depression and anxiety. And it was being shown. I've still got it downstairs. I've kept it. The drawing that the therapist drew out for me, the infinity sign on a piece of A4. And on one side she wrote anxiety, and another side she wrote depression. And explained that what was going on was that I would caught my existence, my outlook on life, my perspective, was caught in this infinite cycle. It was stuck in this cycle, and of between depression and anxiety. And only just very briefly did I ever have just this very quick, brief moment of feeling normal, whatever that was. And when she drew this out for me and explained to me what was going on with me, it was like, well, it was the second enlightenment that I had. It was the second thing that happened to me, very close together, which I describe as an enlightenment because it just completely changed my perspective. And that's what ignited my journey into looking into different cultures. I was already using Chinese herbal medicine as a way to tackle my anxiety, so I was kind of familiar with it. But I pursued that some more. I delved right into traditional Chinese medicine and the 5 elements, Shi energy, discovered about Shi energy. I then discovered what did I discover next? It was law of attraction that I discovered next. And what I found, what I discovered was that all of these different topics, all of these different subjects were saying the same thing. That energy is at the heart of existence. And doing transcendental meditation, whilst it's not discussed in transcendental meditation, it's the consciousness that's discussed. Personally, I see an intrinsic link between consciousness and energy. For me, consciousness is the basis. It's the realm of infinite existence where infinite creativity comes from. And then as a manifestation of that is energy. And energy is the fabric, it's the proof that consciousness exists. And I just find the whole thing really, really fascinating. We've got a spammer, have we? Oh, we do. Right. Never mind. Well, you know, sometimes that's going to happen. So what are your thoughts? I know we've kind of been having a bit of a discussion already on this. Does any of this sort of resonate with you at all? Do you agree? Do you disagree at all with anything we've covered this evening? Interested to know what your thoughts are there. What's your perspective? What's your belief? Are you meditate as well, Laurie? Yeah. Meditation is, it makes a difference. It makes a big difference to be able to go deep within the self. I think also as a meditator, understanding the purpose of meditating is important. Understanding what its purpose is and having an idea of what to expect from meditating. And for me, that was the most profound lesson that I ever had about meditating. And I think that comes from transcendental meditation as well. One of my earlier lessons. It's about understanding what the actual true purpose is of meditating, you know. Oh, right. Well, yes. Well, this is the common experience of meditating. It is experiencing just pure bliss, you know, when time and space just does not exist anywhere at all. You know, it's almost like going into sleep. You know, it's like sleeping, but you're not asleep. You're aware, and you know you're still sat there, and you know you can hear the birds and all the rest of it. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes that even all shuts off. Your whole senses just shut off completely. You know, because the perception of time and space just completely goes out the window. You know. Oh, you've dealt with them, darling. Great. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes. So, yeah, a couple of you are saying meditation is about connection and pure consciousness. Yes. Experiencing pure consciousness is experiencing pure clarity. Pure clarity. When there is no existence. This sometimes people misunderstand what that means, bliss and pure clarity. What do I see things clearly? Well, do I hear things better? Well, yes, that's an end result of meditating consistently, but that's not what we mean when we talk about pure bliss and pure consciousness. What we're talking about is just the refinement of your existence, of your perception. And it's the refinement of talking about consciousness is such a difficult thing because unless you experience it as a meditator, our meditator mentor will use the analogy, but actually it wasn't him, it was his great teacher, His Holiness Maharishi, that talks about trying to describe what an onion or what an orange tastes like to somebody else that's not experienced that before. You try that. You try explaining to somebody what it's like to taste an onion or to taste an orange. That's probably better than trying to taste an onion. It's just impossible. You can't explain it. You can't describe it at all. But pure bliss, pure consciousness, pure awareness is that existence. It's that place where time and space just doesn't exist. The senses don't exist. And you're just completely aware of yourself, within yourself. And that's what it means, pure bliss. A pure awareness of the self. And what we're connecting to, that pure version, that pure connection of the self, is a consciousness that is in all of us. It's a consciousness that connects everything. And so comes the collective consciousness. Sorry, Laurie, let's just back up a second. I must be blocked as the more I try to get back. Jay's got it spot on. Don't try. Don't try. Don't try. It's the same with law of attraction. You don't try. What do we do with law of attraction? We project. We project outwardly. We ask the question. We let go. We move on. It's the same with meditating. Almost. It's almost the same. We let go. We just... No trying. No trying. Because as soon as you try it, then you're changing the nature of it. It's not the same. You know, people think that meditating is about experiencing this ultimate, it comes back to what I was saying a moment ago about understanding the purpose of meditating. And I think that in the Western culture, Western culture has been... the perception of meditating has been largely impacted by film and television and how that's been portrayed, how meditating has been portrayed, that you see the guru floating above the ground and he's in this state of pure bliss and he's got his eyes closed and and the vision that we see of him having is like the birds are singing and dancing and, he's floating in the clouds. It's a load of nonsense. That's not what it is. That's not meditating. And if your purpose of meditating is to try and get to there, well, first of all, you're failing straight away because you're trying. And secondly, that ain't it. That's not meditating. That's maybe visualizing, but it's not meditating. Meditating in the purest sense is going back within the self, reconnecting with the self, and experiencing the self in its purest form, where no time and space exists, no perception, no ego exists, nothing, no senses. It is just a pure awareness. You know you exist, and that is it. That's all it is. It's just something so profound. You don't need anybody to remind you of what to do, Laurie. You know it already. You know it all already. All you've got to do is just simply sit in quiet, in silence, and close your eyes. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. And if you're having thoughts, just because you're having thoughts in meditating, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. Thoughts in meditating is good. Because thoughts during meditating is the release of stress. It's like a bubble. It comes up from your existence, and it's a release. You're getting a release of stress. We're sort of going off topic a little bit, but it's kind of relevant to what we're discussing because of cycles and patterns. When we talk about meditating to reach pure awareness, pure consciousness, we're actually de-stressing the body. That's really what we're doing. And in a way, that is the fundamental purpose of meditating. Yes, it's to feel. Yes, it's to experience life, for sure. But that's a byproduct of meditating. Because actually what you're doing when you meditate is you're reconditioning the body. You're reconditioning your central nervous system, ultimately, to prepare it so that it can accommodate and it can handle higher states of awareness or more pure states of awareness. It's something that's talked about quite deeply in transcendental meditation, and I strongly recommend looking up transcendental meditation. If you've got a local teacher near you, then it's something worth investigating, worth looking at. It changed my perception of meditating completely, I have to say. But then again, you know, if you're looking to get the release, if you're looking to change these unhealthy cycles and patterns that we're talking about, that we're discussing, and looking to change your belief systems, well, obviously energy work is one of those modalities that you can use that is just as simple and effective as meditating. We've run over a little bit with time. We're about 10-15 minutes. I wondered whether we could just try a little experiment, if you would be willing to, just for about another 10-15 minutes, and then we'll be looking to wrap up. So let's just see what my darling Jay's saying. So I think it's clear to say that even when you practice meditation, energy work, etc., can still have triggers, cycles and patterns. But with the toolkit, the experience tends to last less and impacts us less. It can still impact you, but have the tools to lessen the impact. Yeah. Well, if you meditate and you do energy work together, then two things will happen. You'll speed up the process of dealing with resistances and blockages that are within you. And you will then go on to have a profound effect and change in your perception of the self, but the perception of the world as well. And that's where you get to really ignite and really invigorate the manifestation process. Because if you align both of them together, you're speeding up the process and you're going to get a deeper experience, for sure. Of course, we can't forget crystals as well. Absolutely. Yeah, which is also energy. And you know what? So's money. Money is energy. Everything is energy. Everything. It doesn't matter what you pick up. It doesn't matter what you look at. It doesn't matter what it is. It's energy, because everything in the universe is made of it. Okay, right. So let's do a little experiment. I've not done this before. I've not tried this before. I think I might have tried this during a live that I did a couple of years ago. Everything is energy, baby. Hell yeah. we're going to try and work on something. We're going to try and work on a little cycle or pattern that you feel is within you. I'm just getting myself a bit more comfortable so I can see you. I'm blocking out my light behind me. This won't take very long. I'm going to take you through a very simple 3-step process. What I want you to do is, if you're not already, just sit comfortably, okay? And make sure your back is supported. If you want to lay down, you can lay down. That's fine. Yeah. Hey, you're nicking my favourite quote there. Do or do not. There is no try. I'm getting carried away. Star Wars is tomorrow. Star Wars Day is tomorrow. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Okay. Get yourself into a nice, comfortable position. Make sure your back is supported. That's the most important thing, is make sure your back is supported. So if you want to lay down, you can lay down. If you just want to sit in a high back chair, then do that. Just make sure that you're also in a nice, peaceful environment. I mean, the environment doesn't matter too much, but if you've got the TV on in the background or something, just mute that for a moment. If you've got kids in the background, maybe just go into a nice, quiet room somewhere if you're able to. But I just want you to get nice and comfortable. And what I want you to do is just to close the eyes. Just simply close the eyes. So we're going inwards. And just rest your hands wherever you want them to. You can rest them in your lap. And what I want you to do is think of a habit, think of something that you do on a regular basis that you want to change. Something that you want to change about yourself. So that could be a cycle that's manifested. It could be a pattern. It could be something that you're avoiding. It could be a resistance to something that you're just putting off. I just want you to think about that for the moment. Just allow that idea, that thought of that thing to just present itself to you. Maybe you're putting off contacting someone. No, I'm not going to reach out to that person. Why should I contact that person? There we go. Maybe it's a resistance to money. And you don't feel that you're attracting the value, the worth that you feel you deserve. Whatever it is, just connect with that thought and that idea for the moment. And just breathe it in. Just get into a nice, comfortable breathing routine. Just allow your breath. Breathe in nice and deeply and exhale really deeply as well. And just do this a couple of times. Nice inward deep breath. And then a nice deep exhale. And just allow the breath to settle for the moment. And what I want you to do is we're going to use power of projection. And I want you to try and see if you can bring that thought to the surface. Bring it closer towards you. See what reaction we get. I want you to keep thinking about that. Keep allowing that to resonate within you. And I want you to ask yourself the questions. Whatever the cycle is, whatever that is, what's driving that cycle? What's behind it? Just ask that question. What is behind my reluctance to reach out to whoever? What is my reluctance to attracting wealth? What is behind my feeling lack of value and appreciation? And just sit with that thought for a second. Just sit with that idea. Allow that thought, that question, to just repeat. Use it as a mantra, so to speak, if you want, but you can use power projection. You can say it out loud as well. Why am I reluctant or resistant to contacting XYZ person? Why am I not attracting the wealth, the money that I want in my life? Why? Just find different ways to ask the question. How is this cycle of whatever it is, attracting or not attracting wealth, or this resistant to contact someone, or whatever the situation is, how is this cycle harming me and hurting me? And because you're going inwards, you should start to experience an answer. It might be a thought. It might be an idea that comes to mind. It might be a vision of something. It might be a picture. It might be colours. It might be shapes. Just keep the eyes closed throughout this whole experience. Keep that connection internally. You might hear things. You might start to experience emotions. Emotions might start to come to the surface. You might be feeling a particular way. Grief, sadness, jealousy. Who knows? Can you recognize the emotion? And then behind that, let's take the awareness even further. And can you identify somewhere within the body that's responding to that idea, to that thought? Is a part of your body feeling or doing something that's a clue, that's an indicator that it's linked in some way back to this initial thought? And then you can ask, you can play around with the questions. We won't do that this evening, but you can go deeper with this. Is the feeling that I'm having in my left knee attributed to the harmful cycles and patterns that have manifested? Or is it attributed to this stress that I'm holding on to about XYZ? You can play around with those questions and get a deeper response. But you should be getting some sort of response. Keep the eyes closed. Don't tell me anything at the moment. Don't come out of it to type anything. Just stay with it. Stay internal. Now what I want you to do is the release. Again, using the power of projection again to get the release. I release these harmful cycles that are harming me, hurting me, and stopping me. I release these harmful cycles that are hurting me, harming me, and stopping me. I let go of these harmful effects and I release them from my energy. And just sit with that thought, that idea, that resonance, that idea of releasing and letting the tension of that go. Focus on that release. And now refill. So we use positive energy. I'm going to refill it with something pure, helpful, and productive. I allow my energetic flow to be free, healthy, and helpful. I allow my energetic flow to be free, healthy, and helpful. My actions and behaviors are empowering, positive, and healthy. My actions and behaviors are empowering, positive, and healthy. I recognize my true power and potential, and it flows to me in abundance. I recognize my true power and potential, and it flows to me in abundance. And just visualize and have that sensation of that nice positive energy just coming back into you. And if you've got that particular sensation, feeling in the body, then send that positive healing energy to that particular part of the body. Cleanse it. It's like washing a dirty t-shirt in clean water. And you're just cleaning it and washing off the dirt, and it's just dissolving and releasing. Just take a nice long deep breath in again. And as you exhale, just feel that release and just feel it pour through you. Now you've had your eyes closed for a sufficient amount of time, so just be careful of how you come out. Do it nice and slowly and gently. Blink open the eyes when you're ready. Just take your time to come out. Don't just suddenly open your eyes. How was that? Anybody care to share? I'm using all the puns tonight. Don't be shy, say hi. Thank you, Gail. No worries. Yeah, so feel free to share if you want to, what your experience was. Did you have any visions, any feelings, any sensations? Did anything come to the surface? Did you experience a release of some sort? You got a response and it was fab. Lovely. There was something in your eyes, darling, was there? It wasn't clear and liquidy by any chance. Quite a bit of release. Excellent. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. This should be an uplifting experience. So if you get that kind of release, if you get a powerful release like that, powerful emotional release, that's a good sign. That's a good thing, because it's indicating that something has shifted, something has resolved, you know, and it should feel good. It should feel positive. It should leave you feeling like lighter, that it's not keeping you enclosed anymore. This is what it went to your throat. Wow. Okay, so throat chakra there, possibly, Gail. Any colours at all? Did you see any colours as you were sort of, you know, having that sensation at all? What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying now. Oh, you had a light orange colour. And yours was in the chest, Laurie. Right, so heart chakra for you. Wasn't that something that came up for you before? In fact, actually, Gail, wasn't it throat as well? When we did a live a while ago? Yeah, what did it feel like in your throat? And what did the release feel like? I'm really interested to know what the release felt like. Orange is opposite to blue. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Came up before for me. Okay. Yeah, you do, Laurie. You do seem to have the chest, the heart. It's the heart center. Your heart chakra. Maybe there's some work to do there on your heart chakra, and Gail on the throat chakra. Do you feel like sometimes you haven't got a voice, Gail, that you can't say what you really want? Might be a type of resistance. The release was calming. Very good. Very, very good. Made you feel calm. Right. Fantastic. Yes, it does go back to what we were discussing in previous weeks, for sure. Yeah, it's a continuity there, isn't there? There's a pattern, for sure. Didn't seem to clear, but then felt pressure just between your eyes. So maybe it shifted. Now, here's the thing about energy. It might have shifted. So this is a resistant energy, right? So where you felt that you got the release from your heart chakra, it could be that now it's just gone in between your eyes. So now that's your third eye. It's your third eye chakra. So maybe it's just shifted. Maybe it's just kind of, it's reluctant. It doesn't want to be fully released. So if you feel like you've got a pressure in between your eyes here, anywhere sort of in this sort of space, then that's your third eye chakra. So maybe there's some more release to get from that. Yes, sunset solidite. Yes, of course. That's one of the crystals that you've got there, Gail. So yeah, absolutely work with that, because you've got the combination of the blue, but also the combination of the yellow as well. The blue is, so I think what Jay was saying there, Gail, is that the blue is the throat. Blue is the throat chakra. So you probably need to work with getting work with more blue, get some more blue into there, because if you were experiencing, was it you that was saying you got the orange color, or was it Laurie? Let me just scroll back a second. Oh, you said it was light blue. Okay, it was light blue. Yeah, right. So yeah, what do you need to do? So you it's the throat chakra you ultimately need to work with. Yeah, and if you had the light blue come up, it could be an indicator that there's a blockage there, a resistance of some sort. Yeah. So just using the sunset solidite. Oh, it was orange, was it? Okay, right. So it's the I thought it was. So just scroll back, and maybe it was Laurie. I'm getting confused now. Right. Yeah. What Jay is saying, she is more clued up with the crystal work, but working with the opposite color. working with the opposite colour of what you experienced there in the throat is what you can use to get a deeper release. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, I hope you found this evening informative. I hope that you found it interesting, and that it's giving you some food for thought, for sure. It's quite a deep subject. It overlaps with lots of different things. You know, you've got resonance there, you've got consciousness, perception. I probably didn't speak enough about perception, to be honest. There's more we can explore with that. But we got to talk about meditating as well. So it's a lot of crossovers with this subject, a lot of crossovers. So I hope that it's given you, something to think about. I hope that the little exercise that we done together was helpful. I hope that you managed to experience something positive, got a release of some kind. It certainly sounds like a couple of you have, which is great. So yeah, don't forget to, if you've enjoyed watching, like the video. Be sure to follow us on Facebook. And yes, we do have a YouTube account. We will be getting more active on it. But do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Synergy and Flow. Yes, give the little bell icon a little tickle. And then you'll be up to date with whenever we post fresh content there. So Jay and I are back again together this weekend. Can't wait for you to be here, darling. And we'll be back for Synergy and Flow on Sunday at 2:00 for our check-in. So gives you an opportunity just to come and check in with us. You know, how are you doing? And share with us your experience for the last 2 weeks. And obviously, Jay and I will be. We'll be talking about something on Sunday. I can't tell you what it is at this moment in time, but we'll be talking about something, I'm sure. But it's an opportunity for you to come and check in with us and ask questions, help with the alignment and all that kind of stuff. All right. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be talking to you this evening, and thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your evenings in whatever you are endeavouring to do. I'm off to go put the kettle on and speak with my darling before heading off to Betty Byes. So I'll bid you well, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thanks guys for watching. Namaste. Stay safe, be well, be happy. See you soon.